Thunderstash Gaming, what is going on?
What's up? Happy to be here. Happy New Year. Crazy thing, it's 2025. Each year keeps going by faster. And I feel like this year is already going by fast.
I do too. And tomorrow's the announcement of the Switch 2, right? It's January 8th.
We'll see. I mean, new rumors every day. Obviously, CES is going on. So we'll
Right.
see what happens there and see if Genki makes any mention of Switch 2 products and accessories.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we have a fun topic today. We're going to talk about backwards compatibility, and although on the surface it might seem like what is there to talk about, I think there's a whole lot. So, we're going to jump into it right after this. Well, before we jump into the main topic, Thunderstash, let everybody know where they can find you and maybe something that you've recently released or you got something on the books that you'd like to talk about.
Absolutely. You can find me on YouTube at thunderstashgaming. And stash is spelled with an SH at the end, by the way. It's not spelled the traditional way. Why? Because mustache is a commonly misspelled word. So I tried to simplify it. So as far as my work, what I've done recently, I just posted my review for Metaphor ReFantazio. I more than 100% of the game. I got the platinum trophy, spent over 150 hours in that world. So if you want to know what that game's all about, maybe why it won some of the awards that it did at the Game Awards, and if you're looking to get a Switch 2 when it comes out, I will say I have a very good feeling that Metaphor will be coming to Switch 2. So check that out if you're into RPGs. Even if you're not, I mean, just check it out. Trust me on that. It was a game that I had a lot to say about. And as far as what I'm working on my most anticipated games of 2025 video. I am almost done. I have all of the games together. The list is there. Everything's done. I will say this though. No matter where you go to IGN, you go to GameSpot, you go to Google, type in 2025 game release calendar, and no one's going to have a definitive list. They never do. There's always games missing. There's always big omissions. And I'm like, why don't they have this game on here? And so, long story short, I go to a bunch of different places and I make sure every game is on the list. Nothing's left out. So this is a long video, but the goal is for it to be the definitive 2025 most anticipated games list. So check that out. Hopefully I'll have that up. Maybe I'm looking by, I think tomorrow. I should have that posted tomorrow on my YouTube channel. So there you go. Now let's talk backwards compatibility.
Oh yes, yeah. So I mean, it's been a couple months now, almost, or right around like a little over a month and a half since we heard from the president of Nintendo stating that backwards compatibility is going to be a thing on the Switch successor. Still calling it the Switch successor, not Switch 2 yet. And although we've seen so much stuff, we're pretty confident that it is going to be the Switch 2. And this it got me thinking, because I even went and watched some other videos, like I think it's the Rule of Two. I was listening to him talk about it.
Yeah.
And Nate, he put out something about it, but the focus tends to be like, I get to bring my library forward, right? Like that seems to be the main thing that everybody talks about, and that's great. It's very consumer friendly. It's been an issue. I mean, this issue for Nintendo goes all the way back to the NES. Like there are news clips of people saying, I will not buy the next Nintendo because I can't play my old games on it.
I remember that.
Yeah. So this is it's been a hot topic for quite some time. And of course, when they move from cartridge to disc and then back to cartridge again, like that kind of gives them a pass, right?
Yep.
This time around, it's not going to be the case. Backwards compatibility is very much going to be a thing, and I think there's going to be so much more to it. I think it has a huge. It's going to be a big part of their business model with Switch 2, and in particular with membership, like with services that are 20, 15, 20, maybe $35 a month, depending on if they do like a family plan or something like that, where they could include a lot of these Switch games. But I mean, just initially jumping into it, when you first heard backwards compatibility, what were you thinking?
So I was expecting backwards compatibility. I think you have to, because I was expecting this to be the Switch 2. Like, it's iterative. It's going to be the same form factor. I wasn't expecting anything radical, right? It's still going to be a hybrid system. For me, everything just made sense and lined up for this to be backwards compatible. If it was a completely different thing, it's going to be a lot harder, right? We all know this. So it made a lot of sense for me for backwards compatibility. But when it was confirmed, I was excited. Uh, when Furukawa put out his tweet, I think one thing that kind of stood out to me, and it may have stood out to you too, is the end of the tweet where he said at a later date he will talk about it more, about the backwards compatibility. And it's like, well, what else is there to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing though, is that I've always I guess you could say I kind of prophesized that, hoping this would happen. Not saying that it would, but I put this out there probably the beginning of the year on the Nintendo Byte podcast about DLSS and backwards compatibility,
Yeah.
and how Switch 1 games could take advantage of the new technology. And this opens the door, in my opinion, to so many different conversations about what backwards compatibility could really be. And so it's exciting, right? And like you said, at the forefront, you look at backwards compatibility. It's like, yeah, it's backwards compatible. Is there really, a lot to talk about? And it's like, yeah, actually, there's a ton. There's so much we can get into here. So I have a lot of different ideas about it, but I think there's more to it. This is not cut and dry. It's not.
And it really isn't. And right off the bat, you start talking DLSS, and it even that to me, what seems really neat about this generation, and I haven't done as much research as I would like. I know that the PS5 Pro has some similar tech in it.
Mhm.
But do you know if the Series S, X, and PS5 have something like this?
No, they don't.
Okay.
They don't. This is the DLSS that Sony is using is proprietary.
Mhm.
Meaning, it's not exactly what, say, NVIDIA puts on their website. There's some tweaks to it, just like any like custom chip, right?
Right.
It's like the Switch uses, this chip, but what's customized about it? Uh, as far as the PS5, Xbox, and the Series S, yep, correct. They don't use this. What's different with Switch 2 is, of course, this will be the only console, the first console to use DLSS from the ground up in developing games. So right now, the way PS5 Pro is using the DLSS is, hey, these games that have already came out, some of them, if said developer wants to put out a patch, can then run better. Now, some of them do run better, and I want to make that clear. Some of them run better without a patch. Like, you don't have to. But for developers that do want to optimize the game, they will run better now on PS5 Pro. And that's great. And that's really cool. Again, what's different though with Switch 2 is that they're actually making the game from the ground up with this technology. So, like, I think we're in for a really big treat. But if we look at the Pro and what's happening right now, I think we can probably do an apples to apples comparison with the Switch 2 as far as, hey, I don't know how many games it is now. I know it was quite a bit. I thought maybe it was 80 games on the PS5 Pro
Okay.
that have already came out. So these are older games are taking advantage of the DLSS. So they're taking advantage of games that have already been released and running better on the Pro. Some are, I would say many are doubling the frame rate, going from 30 to 60. The biggest comparison, the biggest thing I've seen is that if you play a PS5 game in, what was it? There's performance mode and then there's quality mode. So if you're playing in quality mode, which is the one that's going to be like 4K 30,
Mhm.
with the PS5 Pro, your quality mode is essentially the performance mode. So now it's 4K 60, which is
Nice.
huge.
Okay. Yeah.
But again, when you develop from the ground up, I think it's going to be way different, like way better. This is just patching.
Correct. So my first question then, especially since you seem pretty fairly knowledgeable in this area, do you think Nintendo creates, so my initial thought, I'll just start with this. My initial thought is that the Switch 2 the Switch 1 continues to be supported for up to 2 years, right? That takes us to the 10-year mark that they said that they wanted, how long they wanted the Switch to run. Now, in my mind, and in the video I put out about this, I see remakes and remasters being fed to Switch 1 and then brand new titles, Odyssey 2, Splatoon 4, those moving on to the Switch 2, right? And so,
Yeah.
because you want to have the lure of moving, you don't want to put, you can't make, if you keep making everything cross-gen like they did with like Xbox and PlayStation did, you're upsetting the early I think I said adapters in my video. I totally didn't mean to. Early adopters, and um you end up upsetting those people because they're not getting the most out of their they're not getting the most for their money, right? Because
They're
you're
not.
still playing software that's running on old hardware, and it I think so. Again, my initial thought is they do remakes and remasters on both consoles, but with this whole DLSS situation, could they do like more cross gen stuff? That, because I understand, like with the, at least with the compression and some things like that, like you can essentially put out a game that's 540 and then DLSS can double it to 1080, right? And then
Yeah.
1080 to 4K. And so, but it's not all about just it's not all about the just the resolution and the frames. You're also talking about what, what the chipset is possible of doing within the new hardware versus the old. I don't think this is just a complete like, don't get me wrong, I think it's incredible. I love it, but I don't know that that they would have the opportunity to just say, "Oh, we're going to continue cross-gen for the next 2 years." I don't know that that's the way. I don't think it's that strong, right? So,
Yeah,
what do
like
you
they're
think?
not
Do
going to
you
be able
think
to apply it to Switch 1.
right, exactly. And so, do you think they go cross-gen with multiple games, or do you think they go mostly Switch to? Do you think they go cross-gen at all, I guess? Do you think my theory on remakes and remasters is just out in left field?
Okay, so I think remakes and remasters do continue to come to Switch 1. They're Switch 1 titles, they're Switch 1 physical games. You can play them on your Switch 2. I think, I would presume Nintendo would leave it up to the developer if they want to release said game on Switch 1 and then include, an upgraded version for Switch 2. I think that's definitely something you could do. Like, hey, on Switch 1, this is going to run how all the other Switch 1 games run. And on Switch 2, it's 60 FPS and 1080p in handheld. And if you dock it, it's 4K. So I think that would be a great opportunity, honestly, because now you're selling the game to the 150 plus million user base, and you're also selling it to everyone buying the Switch too.
Yeah.
Like if I was a third party developer and I had the resources to do that, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you try and take advantage of both?
Right. And especially indies.
One
Right?
SKU, and it can
Yeah.
sell on 2 systems,
Mhm.
and you only have to produce one SKU, one physical box. Totally. Be all over that.
Yeah, and I think the thing to keep in mind, like, we start talking Madden, Call of Duty, Elden Ring. It's not happening on the OG Switch. It's not. Those aren't what we're talking about here. But Among Us and some smaller indie stuff, or even get like look what Ubisoft has done with like Mario plus Rabbids and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like if Nintendo potentially opens up their IP, but I mean we've seen Square do amazing stuff on
Oh, yeah.
Switch 1. These less like graphic intensive games like Dragon Quest 3, right? Like it's the HD 2D. Like I can't imagine the sequels to those coming out and being Switch 2 exclusive. Will they
Yeah.
have those are prime opportunity for the DLSS to up the frame rate and up the resolution, but I think they'll run fine on Switch 1.
I think they will too. I think it from a third party perspective, it'll be very similar to games that come out on PS4 that are also on PS5. There's plenty of games that still come out today. There's still games that come out today on PS4, and they also come out on PS5. And it's known that the PS5 version is obviously going to run better. It's going to look better. It's going to play better as far as 60 FPS. So I think as far as Nintendo goes, though, with their first party titles, I think they need to be really careful because, I mentioned this, that it could be a really slippery slope. Because if you release one game, okay, and you make it clear that it's only one game, that's one thing. But if you release one game cross-gen, then everyone's going to expect more. Like, if you can do Metroid Prime 4 cross-gen or you can do Mario Kart cross-gen, then can't you do Animal Crossing cross-gen?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's not a graphically intensive game, and I think that's how a lot of the casual crowd will think. And then they get upset and they're like, oh, I'm not going to upgrade or, this and that. It's like, I don't even know if you just want to go down that path.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've talked about it. I think you and I may even have talked about it. Like, I think there's the opportunity for them to do one cross-gen at launch, but I feel like it's best to walk away from it at that point to keep the lure of buying the new system there.
You gotta.
Yeah.
I think you really, really have to. And the thing is that from what we know, they're gonna have enough Switch 2s.
Right.
No one's gonna be bought out by scalpers. Unless you really, really, really probably sleep on it. But
Yeah, for sure.
If you try and buy one, you should be able to get one. And so there's no reason then to slow things down. Like obviously with the PS5, they made it clear that they were going to have to continue doing cross-gen stuff because of the pandemic. Because they couldn't get enough consoles out there to appease everyone who wants to buy one. So therefore, we'll continue to let you play these games on PS4. We'll continue to make a PS4 version because they literally couldn't speed up the production. So that's not an issue now. I think that was a rare instance where that something like that would happen because of a pandemic. So I just don't see that being, knock on wood, nothing else happens. I don't see that being an issue, right? And yeah, part of backwards compatibility, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is getting people to migrate over, though. And if you continue to do cross-gen, they're going to migrate at a much slower pace.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So there's a possibility then with now you got me thinking a little bit, like, you got the script from my last video. I think Nintendo offers a membership giving access to Switch 1 games, but what if that membership doesn't work on the OG Switch? What if that's another lure to come over to the Switch 1? And then look, like, Microsoft has done very well in this, and this may be a controversial topic as well. Like, we'll have to check the comments later, because some people are like, I want to buy my game, I want to own it. Like, I don't think that goes away, right? I don't think that goes away. But I think, in my opinion, I think for Nintendo to do the membership thing right, they say it's $20 a month, and that has to have a pretty big package of games. We're talking everything on NSO, everything that you would see in the voucher system right now, right? Everything that you could buy in the voucher system would need to be in that package. And then potentially these remakes and remasters day one, right? That they would still be, so there'd be some new games, but then anything, I don't see them, I see them flexing their brand muscles like Sony did and not putting out their day one games, day and date on their membership, and
Yeah.
then talking with third parties about getting games to rotate in and out. And then of course the exclusives that were, like I said, Rabbids and Starlink and, whatever some of those other games might be. But I'm wondering if making that only possible with your Switch 2 subscription, and that would also include, like, the vouchers to do three games, for 3 of Switch 1 games for $100, right? But
Yeah.
I see multiple options here. You could continue with your NSO if you're happy buying physical. You could do the 20 a month if you want your NSO that way, plus access to all these games, just a very Netflix style where you don't own anything. But I think right now, I know plenty of people who double dip. They want to get the physical in their collection and then they buy it digitally as well.
Yeah.
Well, you could be spending up to $120 a month, and that may jump to $140 if games go to $70, depending on the month. So you'd actually be ahead. You'd still own your game, but now you can play it without opening it if you want to keep your collection sealed or whatever, if that's something that's important to you. So I don't know. What do you think about all this and the potential? Because I don't see them not doing this membership thing. I think backwards compatibility is a huge, I mean, the writing's on the wall. They're seeing what Xbox is doing. They're seeing and memberships are an incredible business model, right? When your customer base is paying you monthly for a service that you offer, and it's with products that have been built and done for years, you're bringing second life to those. And the last thing I'll say here is that I do think we start seeing more sequels. And so if there's an Odyssey 2, well, you can play Odyssey 1 first if you missed out by being a part of this membership. And that's just one example. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
A lot of thoughts. Let's see here. As far as the membership service, yeah, I think that's definitely an avenue Nintendo could go down. And I think about, if anyone could really do it great, it would be Nintendo, because of their IP. Because a lot of the quality that's going to be on that service is going to be because of your company. If you look at Xbox, for example, a lot of great games on Game Pass. I have Game Pass. But if you look at the games made Now, this conversation, I don't know how much weight it has anymore because they bought so many companies, right? But if you
Correct.
were to say, uh, look at all the games made by Microsoft Studios, that's not going to sell you the service. With Nintendo, that sells you the service.
Absolutely.
And then you go out and you can get maybe some third parties, right? Or maybe they keep it completely first party and don't even mess around with it. It depends on what they want to do. I don't know how lucrative all of that is. I've heard some developers say they wish they wouldn't have let Microsoft basically buy their game to have on Game Pass
Mm.
because they would have made way more money. I've heard that. I've heard the opposite too. Like, hey, no one would have ever noticed our game, probably, and we ended up making a ton of money, and now we can make a sequel and not have it maybe come to Game Pass, and it'll do great, and we would have never had the money to advertise it.
Right, because it eats development costs, I believe. From what I understand, if they sign up for Game Pass, Microsoft pays for the development.
Yeah, I have heard that. I don't know how it works, as far as, because I don't think Microsoft is funding games at like a concept stage. Yeah, I think there's probably quite a bit of time that goes by until they actually see the game, and a considerable amount of money has already been spent, money and time. So I don't know if they're paying retroactively now for it or what. I don't know how all that works. So again, I don't know how lucrative all of it is, but if anyone was going to be able to do it well without having to rely on everybody else.
Yeah.
Because we all know, everybody knows, that you buy a Nintendo to play Nintendo IP. Now, some people buy it to play everything. I'll play everything on it. You will too. Everything that obviously is good. If it runs, terribly on Switch, maybe you won't play it on there. You'll play it somewhere else, but you'd prefer to play it on Nintendo. But with Nintendo, with their first party games, I think that would be an easy sell. Now, you mentioned maybe like $20 a month. Maybe. PlayStation Premium's $18.99. How much is Game Pass Ultimate? Is it 20 or is it 25 now? I know they've had a couple of price increases.
Yeah, it was 20. It may have jumped to $24.99 recently.
Yeah. It seems like that's the model, right? That's the model these days, whether you look at video games, you look at music. Music's the same way. It's got Spotify, you got Apple Music. Obviously, TV went that way first, before anyone, I think. It was TV with all the subscription models. It's interesting, though, now at the stage we're in it feels like people are getting pretty tired of the TV subscription-based model. And people are looking back at it saying, I got Netflix, I got Paramount, I got this because I need to watch this. I need this sports channel, so I have to subscribe to this and get all these other channels I don't want, but I have to do it like that to get my local sports. And before you know it, you're spending way more money than you did on cable.
Oh, for sure.
Which sucks. So I wonder, I just wonder if that's ever going to be a sticking point with video games now. It's like, oh, I got PlayStation Premium, I got Game Pass, and now I got Switch. And what's interesting is a lot of people, it seemed like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe the algorithm was showing me negativity, but it seemed like a lot of people were upset over the price of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack service. Meanwhile, I'm like, dude, this is a steal.
Yeah.
A steal compared to Xbox and PlayStation. Now, again, they're doing they're doing different things. It's two different things, but what's similar is you're getting video games for both of these services. And I look at it like, hey, if you sign up for that expansion pack service and you haven't played these games, because I meet people all the time. I talk with people all the time online who haven't played so many great games on 64, on Nintendo, Super Nintendo, you name it. Like maybe they just started playing during the Switch era, or maybe the first time they ever played video game was during the Wii, and they haven't played anything before that. It's like, dude, this service is for you. Then, like, this is great. If you're new to gaming and you haven't played any of these, and even for people like us who have been doing it our whole life, I have expansion pack. I got it the day it came out. My service has never lapsed. It's probably never going to. I love it. It's great. It's great to be able to play those old games. Now, if there was a better way to play those old games, now you're talking. Like, now you really, really have my attention, which is something that I'm personally hoping we could see on Switch 2 with the DLSS. I think that's how you really do it. Like, I know you mentioned with the Switch 1 games. I think that's a great idea. That's if they go with that subscription model. Either way, I think Switch 1 games are going to massively, massively benefit from the Switch 2, like in ways we haven't seen before. I think that the Switch 2 backwards compatibility, if these games can be upgraded, which if this is the hook of the system, which I do think it is, I've mentioned this many times, the Switch code name is ounce. And I've said it before, I don't think that's how you should be looking at it. I think it's Oz. And I think it's talking about the wizardry of DLSS.
Yes.
Because it's going to be magical what they do.
Right.
And that's how Nintendo's been with a lot of their code names. Like, they have obviously different meanings. I don't think it has anything to do with weight.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it has to do with the magic of what they're going to do. And it's like, if you think about it, a game that stopped development 10 years ago can sell on Switch 1 like it's a brand new title with one patch. And the patch, it's not a very labor intensive patch. It's a one-time thing. You assign a team to it, they patch it. It's good to go. That's it. And now you can sell a 10-year-old game like it just came out. Like, the opportunity for Evergreen here, like I said, Evergreen could be completely redefined. So it's like, maybe you do both. Maybe you say, hey, we have a membership, or, obviously you can buy these games. But I think we might run into a scenario this time around where, like, if you look at like the DS and the 3DS, or the Game Boy and the GBA, once the GBA came out, you really didn't see Game Boy games anymore on store shelves. Same thing with the DS.
Right.
But if we're living in a world where Switch 1 games now play better, like seriously actually better on Switch 2, we could live in a world where Switch 1 games are still on store shelves 10 years later. Because if you look at it, March will be 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Mario Odyssey, now maybe that's a bad example because that game's optimized so well, but if you look at something like Breath of the Wild, if that's going to run 4K 60 or even 1080 60, I think 4K 60 though, that's what we've heard, that's the rumors, and I would believe that. But if it can run at 4K 60, why wouldn't it be on sale in 2027 on store shelves? 10 years after the fact.
Well, and with player's choice.
Yep.
Or
exactly.
Nintendo Select.
Yeah, this is the perfect time to bring it back. And it's like, I thought about it. Obviously, we're we're in the 8th year now. We haven't gotten Player's Choice, Nintendo Select, whatever we want to call it. We haven't gotten them. But what if there's a reason behind that?
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
And I was thinking about that at the gym today. I'm like, that's got to be the reason we haven't got it, because, like always, Nintendo has a long-term plan in place.
Right.
They always do. They know when the next Donkey Kong's coming out. They know when the next Zelda is. Like, it's not by chance. They're not throwing darts at the dartboard, right? They know what they're doing. And that would be such a great long-term evergreen move. And I always go back, and you do too. We go back to what? Mario Kart 8.
Mhm.
That released to help kind of tide everyone over for the new Mario Kart. And it turned into something completely different. It turned into an experiment that was incredibly successful. So now it's like, how can we do this again? Can we do it with more games? Actually, if the Switch 2 plays all the Switch 1 games better, do it with all these games. And we sell them at a lower price. Everybody wins.
Yeah, and Nintendo Selects, maybe it's a new type, maybe they changed the name, whatever the case is, but if part of the marketing, like on the packaging, in the all the marketing in general is just optimized for Switch 2, like that's a selling point, especially for people that haven't touched it yet. And I think the Switch 2 with the DLSS and the ability for games like Madden and Elden Ring and Call of Duty, if those truly become an opportunity for people to play, like short of you wanting like the most bleeding edge tech like the PS5 Pro, like there's a viable option here for this to become, you know, the main system for some people. Like, don't get me wrong, if you're trying to play COD competitively, you're probably not going to do it on the Switch. You're going to be looking at a Series X or the PS5 Pro or something along those lines. Like there's no question. Or even like honestly, you're probably going PC at that point, right? For the absolute best performance. But I mean, for like the average gamer that just wants to be able to play everything and play it on the go, this like I think no longer are we going to have to worry about games looking like Clay Fighter when they're a top tier AAA game. They're going to look incredible. They're going to look really, really good. And that's going to open the door for a new player base to jump in to the Switch for the first time and having access to, I mean, they proved it with Mario Kart 8, like you said. That game, they knew everything they were doing with the Wii U. They had incredible games. The software was second to none. The system just didn't do the numbers it needed to which is shocking with how good the software is, but the marketing was just so skewed that people didn't know what they were buying, you know. And so there's big opportunity here for them to sell more copies of these older games. And
yeah, it's a new opportunity because this is not anything we've ever had before. Like it's not going to be as simple as putting a PS1 disc into a PS2 and now you get a small resolution bump. Like, it's not like that. This is going to be huge. If everything goes down the way I'm hoping it will go down, and you as well, is that the DLSS is going to be able to literally upgrade your games for the first time.
Yeah.
This is very special. I mean, you look at all these Nintendo first-party games that have just sold boatloads, and now they can continue doing it into the next generation. That's massive. And the thing is that this isn't unique to just Nintendo. Third parties are going to be able to do this now too.
mm-hmm.
If you want to restart production physical production of one of your games and get on store shelves, you can now. And yeah, maybe they have a label on the game, like some sort of label that, just like Xbox does with optimized, Series S or X optimized, maybe they do something similar. So the consumer, the average consumer who may not know, when they go to, Best Buy, Target, Walmart, and they see a Switch 1 game with all the Switch 2 games, they don't have to wonder why it's there. It's because, oh, there's a sticker on the box now. There's a sticker on the packaging that says it's optimized for Switch 2. And then maybe on the back it says, you can play it on Switch 1 at this, or you can play it on Switch 2 at 60 frames per second, 4K 60. Or if they want to not be super technical, they can just put it's got better, smoother gameplay and looks better. Because some people, the average consumer doesn't exactly always understand what we mean when we say 4K 60.
Right. So here's my question then. As you're saying this, it's got me thinking, does Nintendo sell these as Switch 2 only? Like almost like Animal Crossing HD and Mario Odyssey HD and, or Mario Odyssey Deluxe and Animal Crossing Deluxe. And do we see them go that route? Because I know plenty of people who their Animal Crossing island chugs to no end because they have too much stuff on their island and they can't get it to run smooth. So like my hope is that everything Nintendo does is that fine balance of like good business and also consumer friendly. Like that's really what I'm hoping we see here, that it's like it gives people the opportunity to play these games at a lower price while they're still making money on the work they put into doing whatever upgrading they needed to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think as far as like the remakes and remasters that we talked about that will come out on Switch 1, I think you'll be able to play them, of course, like I said, on both consoles, and on Switch 2 it'll run better. No doubt about that. But I think they got to give everyone a reason to migrate over. I really do. So I think if you buy something on Switch 1, it's going to play better on Switch 2, and that's kind of that. Like they're giving us the backwards compatibility. They're allowing us to, play our older games, and they're going to run better. And I think they kind of like leave it at that and say, we've done enough. No one else is doing this. No one else is allowing all these games to play this much better. Because again, Xbox does this, and some of them run better. But it's the way Nintendo is going to do it, I think, is going to be a lot different. There's going to be a lot more options there. And it's going to be obviously a huger upgrade, of course.
I wonder if initially they just say, hey, if you are a Nintendo Switch online expansion member, you are going to get the upgrade path for every game. And they release more upgrades, as the system goes on, as the system ages. And then 2 years from now, when they potentially close the door on Switch 1, then open up their membership that also includes the last 2 years of Switch 2 games, plus all of the Switch 1 games. Now you're, kind of sweetening the deal, if you will, for that membership, because it includes, and I imagine like short of them like really supporting games, there's so much to this conversation, because like they, and it's a whole other show, but the way that they supported certain titles this console generation was in some cases amazing, in other cases absolutely atrocious. You look at some of the sports titles and they drop the ball so bad with these games have amazing gameplay. I've been playing them the last 3 weeks because I'm working on a video, and I'll probably hit you up for another chat about this. But especially being a sports guy like you are, like
Yeah.
they dropped the ball, no pun intended, with games that could have had very long tails if they had just been a little more forward thinking and a little more community focused. And so, with that being said, like I guess if you're doing just like strictly single player games, then those could probably not be as supported. I'm talking Zelda, Mario, right? But then you get into Animal Crossing, and that needs to have the longest tail of all. Like, because that community is hungry and will be hungry for a long, long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Animal Crossing is definitely an evergreen title, just like Mario Kart, and you would expect that. You'd expect it to have a long tail. Now, do you think Animal Crossing would get upgraded on Switch too? Because they want you to play the new one.
It again, I think we're in the like we're in the season for them that a lot of things are going to be sequel focused.
Yeah.
So that they could show us Animal Crossing in this upcoming sizzle reel when Switch 2 releases, and it doesn't come out for 2 years. Right? But an upgraded version of the original with a little bit more content and a $10 upgrade path for existing users. Well, maybe that's maybe that's the route they go just to keep that community happy and keep them warm.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to hold people over, to hold your fan base over, and also get them to migrate over before the game comes out.
Yeah.
Like in that sense, it would make sense. So if they have an Animal Crossing ready to go within like the first year, maybe you think twice about it, or you think about how you're going to handle that. But if you know that the next Animal Crossing is not going to be ready for 2 years after the Switch launches, I would do that. I would find a way to do the upgrade path for $10.
Yeah.
Why not? Because again, you're just going to continue to sell more Switch 2s, more copies of Animal Crossing. You're going to get everyone to migrate over before the game even comes out. And you need them. Because Animal Crossing sold what was it, 40 some million?
It's up there, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you want everyone to migrate over and play Animal Crossing and say, hey, the game's not ready yet, but we've done all this stuff to the current one. And if you already own the game, $10. Which again, Sony's been doing this, the $10 upgrade path. And I think it's a steal. I really do. I think it's a great deal, $10. That's not a lot to ask.
So there's two things I want to touch on. One, I don't think the $10 is bad as long as there's a good value. If it's that community in particular, I don't know if they're going to care about 4K 60, but if you tell them your island is doubled in size and we've added, a bunch more items, that automatically they're going to be like, "Oh, I'm in. I'm in." But for them to just be like, "Oh, and we've made the game 4K 60." I don't think a lot of that community is going to I think it's a casual community that doesn't care about the bleeding edge. Like, I want to make sure my TV, they're probably playing on a 1080p TV, maybe a 4K because they've gotten cheaper, but I don't know that they also may just be playing handheld. Right. And I'm speaking generally, so I could be totally wrong. And it's not for everybody. Of course, there's some people that would kill for that. And if their island is guaranteed not to chug, that might be that might be a selling point. But how are they going to mention that without you know what I mean? Like,
I don't see them owning up to that.
No. But the other thing I want to circle back to a little bit is talking about NSO. And what if we see games like Super Mario Brothers get like a widescreen treatment, and also some of these older games get like more like a 4K resolution, and some of the ROMs are kind of crappy, honestly. Like,
They are.
Like, they're not great. And so to really be able to to see Nintendo, who hates emulation so much and fights against it and pirating and all that stuff, like, give us a reason to play Super Mario Brothers again in the highest resolution and best frame rate possible. Like, I can't imagine it would cost too much with the way technology is now and the use of AI just to be able to expand to widescreen and up the overall resolution.
Yeah. So this is something I've mentioned a lot on the 10 Byte podcast, and it's something that I'm really, really hoping happens, especially as someone who still plays my old games. Not only did we grow up during that period,
Mm-hmm.
but I still play these games. Like I love retro games, and I keep a lot of tabs on any improvements in the retro gaming scene. So, I have an analog NT, so I can play my NES games in 1080p, and even like the NES Classic Edition that plays them at 720. It's HD, but it's not 1080p. This is the only one that does that. I got the Super NT, again, Super Nintendo games, 1080p. You can change the aspect ratios. Purist will have a fit if you want to play anything outside of 4:3. But with the analog systems, they look great when you change the aspect ratio because of their resolution. And then I have pre-ordered the analog 3D, so the 4K Nintendo 64, which I hope is coming out in March. That's what I've gathered so far. So I'm excited to go back and revisit these games because playing them today, with a normal setup, is not ideal, right? So I'm always looking for the best way to play the older games. If Nintendo had a solution to this that they present it through NSO, I would be all over it, and I think a lot of other people would be completely all over this. Now, when it comes to the retro gaming scene, obviously there's playing your physical carts, and then there's the emulation side of it, and then there's the hobbyists that work on these games. And let me tell you, I got right here, I got the Retroid Pocket 5 that I've been playing. I'm working on for a review. And it's got a what is it? Ambi OLED screen. Very nice screen. It's really cool. But this is essentially an emulation machine. And the reason I bring this up is because I can play older games, like what you just mentioned, with widescreen patches. I can patch the game myself and play it in widescreen. So to be able to play older games that I really value, really, really value, games that I want to be able to play for the rest of my life in the best way possible, taking advantage of any sort of modern tech without actually changing the game. And that would be like what you mentioned, playing it at a higher resolution, playing it in widescreen instead of 4:3 and having black bars on the side. I want to see the original game on my full TV, not with black bars.
Right.
The fact that hobbyists can do this, just people who are not video game developers, but they know how to do this kind of stuff. They learn how to tinker and how to improve older games. Like the fact that I can play, for example, Ocarina of Time in 4K at 120 frames per second with a 4K texture pack, which I installed. Dude, insane how good it looks. It looks like a new game.
Love that.
It really does. Yeah. I played that. I played Twilight Princess, which I'm working on some stuff for that, but I played a lot of games. For example, we've talked about GameCube possibly coming to NSO Like we all have talked about that idea. Seems like the next logical move, right? Is to bring over GameCube and DS. If you load up a GameCube game today, once again, GameCube wasn't HD. It wasn't a HDMI cable. So you have to do the converter.
Right.
A lot of people don't know. They don't know which converter to get, and they just buy one on Amazon, and suddenly they start playing the game. They're like, this isn't as good as I remember. It feels weird, and they don't understand that it feels weird because that's input lag, my friend. It's gamers. It's the gamer's worst enemy.
Right.
And people aren't going to go out and search that. They're not going to buy, like, I have a retro Tink. People aren't going to buy that, and you can't expect people to buy it.
Right.
But if you want your fan base to be able to play these older games and like grow your IP, because your IP is not just what you have on store shelves. Your IP is the lifetime of what it is. Like Super Mario Brothers goes back to when it came out on the NES in 85. It's important how people experience those games today, because that just continues to build your brand. And so I think about it, it's like, if people that are not developers can do all this. I played Wave Race Blue Storm on my RGB modded N64 with the HD Retrovision cables. They're expensive cables that are literally made to make it look better.
Yeah. Hooked
up to my Retro Tink 5X, which I bought it maybe a year before the 4K Retro Tink came out. Okay. So I have all that. There's no input lag. It's great. But I'm literally trying to squeeze out the best picture possible. And it looks better. But the thing is that I've already seen better with my own eyes. And I've played better. And again, for example, I played Wave Race Blue Storm on my Retroid Pocket. I turned up the internal resolution to 1440p. So I upscaled it. Then I loaded up a HD texture pack. So all of the models, all of the, literally the player models, the jet skis, everything. It's all now 4K textures. It's a whole new 4K PNG pack. So everything's redone. And all the text in the game that's normally blurry, it's all crystal clear now.
That's
everything.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I'm playing this, man, and I'm just like, and I had done this before I got the retro. I've been tinkering around with this for a few years, but seeing what the hobbyist can do and playing Ocarina of Time with DLSS activated is insane. And so I'm thinking, if a hobbyist can do this, what can Nintendo do?
Right.
DLSS. So I've seen firsthand, I've experienced it, I've played it. I've seen what DLSS can do from what a hobbyist can provide me. And I'm not trying to like downplay their greatness, because I'm extremely thankful for what the hobbyist scene has done. But if they can do that, what can Nintendo do? What can Monolith Soft do? What can Retro do? Retro Studios. What can all these developers that already provide like just kind of magical experiences on the Switch One, what can they do from the ground up with DLSS? So that's obviously another discussion, but it gets me excited because I've seen the power of this. And if they can do that to older titles, why can't Nintendo do this on NSO?
Mm-hmm.
To all of their games? Like I added a widescreen patch as well to Blue Storm, Wave Race. I can add widescreen patches to every GameCube game, and they look great. And so my point is that if I can do this, now I didn't develop it, but if a hobbyist can develop it, and I spend enough time to figure out how to build these packages and make sure I can get everything to run optimized. Like if I can do this, why can't Nintendo do this?
Sure.
this would be such a great sell. And it's such a great way to really honor your IP by making it playable in the best way possible. Like you said, like playing Mario 3 in widescreen. That enough would be awesome. We don't need anything else, right? Playing Super Mario 64. The fact that I can play Mario 64 on my computer at 60 frames per second in 4K, and I can't on my Switch through NSO, and I can't through Super Mario 3D Collection. Like playing it on the, I hate to say it, but it's like playing it on the computer is, and I own 3D Collection.
Sure.
I own all of these games originally. But the fact that I can't get the best experience on Nintendo, I think that should be fixed.
I agree. Yeah.
The opportunity's there. The
Mhm.
tech is there now.
And I think this tech makes everything easier, just from what it seems like. I think it's going to make everything easier for them to do that, right? Because it's
Yeah.
with the use of AI and being able to just kind of from my understanding, is like they essentially just upload some models that end up going into then the AI kind of just does its magic and spits everything back out to where it's kind of it's less on the system itself, on the chipset,
Yeah.
and more on the AI, the machine. It's like machine learning and AI all kind of mixed together, right? And so
Yeah, it's really incredible. And some people have talked about, like, you occasionally see an opinion online where people are like, oh, AI upscaling is trash or whatnot. And it's like, I don't know what you've played. But it's like, man, I've played games with AI upscaling, and it's insane what I've been able to see. Like, just the fact that some games literally look and play and feel new with DLSS. Yeah, and it does do a lot of the heavy lifting. So again, the fact that it'd be built from the ground up now, new games, like it just makes me wonder how crazy this generation's going to be, because Nintendo, we always know they optimize their games better than anyone, and so do their partners like Retro and Monolith. Like, it's going to be wild what we see.
oh man, to be able to see Xenoblade with a larger draw distance and you know even better looking. I was playing a little bit of the definitive edition, Xenoblade definitive edition today, and just everything looks pretty blocky, and it definitely looks like an older title, like, but still gorgeous, like still just amazing. But then thinking about, as we're talking about this, like Princess Peach Showtime, it had some chugs to it.
Yep.
And the Pokemon games could seriously benefit from this. I mean, can you imagine them coming out of the gates and just being like, make sure to check out Scarlet and Violet on your Switch 2 with the upgrade path, because
Well, I wouldn't
it's
be
something else.
surprised.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get Legends this year, which, I mean, we know we're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not be surprised if there's a patch for Switch 2. Would not at all. And that's also a great way of apologizing.
Right.
Is to give that. And now you have a brand new, much improved way of playing the Pokemon games, the mainline series on Switch 2, right out of the gate, without actually making a new game. Like, we're still making whatever it is, the next one, mainline series that they're making, and you're going to get Legends. Like, that's a great way, though, to get the Pokemon fans to migrate over immediately.
And to get back in their good graces.
Yeah. You could win so many points there.
Right.
And I'm sure you saw back when those games released, there was rumors that there was a rumored patch for Switch 2 or Switch Pro. And the fact that that they took a year off and that we still don't know what's going on with the next mainline series makes me think that that's still a thing, and that we should get a patch for that game.
Yeah, because the whole conversation is that Switch 2 was delayed internally.
Yep.
And, I mean, I even looking at like Peach's Showtime and stuff, like it makes me think that was going to be more cross-gen, like definitely running better on the new hardware.
I think so. And I even look at a game like Paper Mario Thousand Year Door.
Mm.
Again, it's in the game's code.
Right.
That can run in 4K. Why would that be in there? Unless there was a plan for that to run in 4K on Switch 2.
Yeah.
There's no other reason for it.
Right.
Zero. So I expect that to, obviously, really it would make sense for all the first party titles.
Yeah.
To set the example, right? Because you always do that. Whatever the console gimmick is. In this case, I would say it's the selling point. It's not a gimmick, but whatever's special about the console, Nintendo will always take advantage of it and really set the example for all the other developers to follow. Like, hey, this is how you can really make best use of this feature on the system. So you would expect, just like Sony has done for the most part, most of their games are taking advantage of PS5. They're backwards compatible games. They run better on PS5, the first party titles. So you'd expect all of Nintendo's first party titles to do the same thing. And again, if you're a third party developer, assign a team, assign some people to work on getting this upgraded for Switch 2. Easy money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what a fun conversation. I appreciate you taking the time. This has been this has been great. I knew just this single topic would keep us going for at least an hour. So
Oh yeah.
Just a lot of fun here, a lot of excitement. So ready for this announcement and to really see what is possible. But I'm very hopeful, honestly, of what's going to be going forward. I love the fact that Nintendo is so healthy and that they're the DLSS thing and everything that's tied to that, like I was honestly nervous prior to this knowledge about the launch of the second console because of watching the Xbox and PlayStation and the way they struggled to really utilize those systems. I mean, I bought the Series X only because I just wanted something more powerful than the One.
Yeah.
But even when it came to the PS5, I bought one and I eventually returned it. And, maybe in the future now, maybe I'll pick one up because there's still plenty of games I want to try on that within their ecosystem. So, but now I couldn't be more excited for the launch of Switch 2 and how things are going to go down. And, it's silly as it might sound, thinking about Super Mario Brothers in 4K, like just looking gorgeous. Like, yeah, I could beat the game in 5 minutes, right? Like most of us probably can, but
yeah,
but just to like be excited to show that off to somebody, like, hey, remember what this game used to look like? Check it out now, kind of thing. Like that's just a good time. Like that's very old school, like, hey, check out these graphics. They're crazy.
Yeah, it'd be really special, honestly. And again, like if there's a way to be able to play Mario 64 in 4K 60 on my Switch 2, my God, like how many people would be so hyped for that and be able to play Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask same way. And again, the fact that I can do it on my computer with DLSS, and I have a 3080.
Okay.
And it puts like zero stress on it. Like,
love that.
You know what I mean? Like it's fine. Everything's running fine. I'm barely using my graphics card. So the fact that it can do that just makes me extremely excited to see how Nintendo is going to take advantage of this. And as they always say, they're trying to find new ways to delight their fan base. This would be a great way to do it.
Absolutely. Well, real quick, just let people know again where they can connect with you and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on YouTube at thunderstashgaming. And again, I just most recently put out my full review of Metaphor ReFantazio. Spent over 150 hours in the game, 100%ed it, got the Platinum Trophy. I really hope this game comes to Switch too, because if it does, this is a game you should definitely look into. So if you don't know anything about it, check out the review. I will say it is spoiler free. I don't like to give spoilers because I think it's important and special how we interact with these games. And if you know everything about it, it kind of takes out some of the fun. So I make sure it's spoiler free. And again, I have a video coming out, hoping to have that out by the time you hopefully see this video. And it's the most anticipated games of 2025. And I made sure to put a lot of games in there that you probably won't expect. It's not just all these AAA games. There's indie games in there that people don't know about that I think are going to be really good that I've been tracking. Games that for some reason, companies don't have it on their video game release calendar that are going to be coming out this year that you will be excited about. Trust me, once you see the video. So I tried to get everything all encompassing there. And what's crazy is I got to say, guys, I had 57 games on this list. And this doesn't include Switch 2 games. That's the crazy part. And I mentioned that in my video because I do talk about the Switch 2 launch. And it's just wild to think that how many games are going to be at it with Switch 2. So 2025 is going to be a heavy duty year. And as you know, most of the games that are coming out, they're not even on the calendar yet. The second half of the year, there's no set release dates.
Right.
No one spoke up yet. We don't know what Nintendo's calendar looks like past March 20th with Xenoblade. We don't know what Sony's really looks like. We really don't know what Microsoft's looks like. So it's gonna be a wild year, man. I'm excited.
Yeah. Me as well. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks for hanging out. Thunderstash, I appreciate it as always. And we will see you guys in the next one. Bye now.